بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. At 53 years of age, the Prophet ﷺ began the migration from Mecca al-Mukarramah to Medina al-Munawwarah, also on a Monday, with 8 days remaining in Rabiul Awwal, and entered Medina al-Munawwarah also on a Monday. As I mentioned, there's something about Monday. Lots of historical events for the Prophet ﷺ, birth, passing, etc., the date of the Hijrah, the entrance into Medina al-Munawwarah, all occurred on a Monday. He ﷺ resided there for a full 10 years before passing away. So 53 years of the Prophet ﷺ's blessed life was spent in Makkah al-Mukarramah. 13 of those 53 years were as a Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for 40 years without nubuwwah, and at the age of 40 the Prophet ﷺ was granted prophethood, and for 13 years the Nabi Kareem ﷺ stayed in Makkah al-Mukarramah, giving the da'wah to the people, propagating the da'wah to those around him and to the family members, and then eventually extending to everybody and anybody. During this period in Makkah al-Mukarramah, as I've alluded to and we've discussed, that there were trials and tribulations that the Muslims had to undergo. One was the actual social and complete boycott of the Muslims, and with stages, the different types of persecutions that went against, or the Quraysh that perpetrated against the Muslims and the Prophet ﷺ. Unfortunately for some of the Sahaba Kiram Ridwanullahi ta'ala majma'een, this included physical attacks on them. This included the actual taking of some of their lives. Sayyidina Sumayya radiyallahu ta'ala anha, the first martyr of Islam, her family, others were also attacked, and on occasion their lives were at stake. And the initial instruction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was that there is no scope of retaliation. So in initial Islam, when the Muslims were going through the difficulties, and so they were being abused verbally, then physically, and then their lives were at stake, the initial instruction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to simply endure. That is part of your test. There is no retaliation. So somebody strikes you, you carry on. And this continued at such frequency and with such ferocity towards the Muslims that some Sahaba Kiram Ridwanullah Tajma'een came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, we're not asking for anything else except, Ya Rasulullah, it's getting too much. Let us at least return. It's getting too much. So the Prophet ﷺ said that you people are very hasty. The prophets that came before you, some of them were raked apart with metal rakes, yet they endured that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, the Sahaba said, that's it. And so they spent a period of time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested the resolve of the believers. This was a test of their resolve. And what a test. That one, we discussed the social boycott, where you're not allowed to trade with someone who's a Muslim. You don't get married to them. Many who were married, they absolved, they took away their daughters if they're married to the sons, or the sons if they're married to the daughters. That you're not even allowed to maintain that type of relationship, right? That's one thing. But the physical abuse, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an, on one occasion was beaten to the point of unconsciousness. His family thought he was going to die. His family thought that there is no way that he survives this. The beating was so intense and so severe that the family actually, they thought that Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala was not going to make it. And this is the test, that resolve. And it comes in the account of that story that when Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala's full consciousness somewhat came back, the first thing that he inquired about was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That how is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And some of the family members they had not accepted Islam yet, but they were bothered because they were his family. They said, you know what, forget you. And they left. You know, even in this situation, the only thing that you can think about is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So immense test of their resolve. So we've gone over the accounts of Bilal radiallahu ta'ala an, Khabbab radiallahu ta'ala an, Sumayya radiallahu ta'ala anha, just to name a few. Ammar bin Yasir, before he accepts Islam, he is considered, you have some kids in society that Allah has blessed their showered and blessed their parents with ni'mah, with bounties, and they are known in the community. That's the rich kid. That's the rich kid. He wears the expensive clothes. He wears the designer clothes. He, hires what he wants, the latest phone. He doesn't have one, he has two. Right? He happens to be the child, and it stands out. When he accepts Islam, that status of what he was is completely taken away. Completely. His account in Uhud is that when he is placed in this, brought tears to the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ, that he remembered what his beginning was before he accepted Islam, and what he gave up for, how his resolve for Islam was at the time of Uhud. That when the Prophet ﷺ was covering the bodies and some of the Muslims who had been killed, including Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, the Prophet ﷺ came for their tajheez, takfeen, to do the kafan, and the possessions were so this is a person who never wore the same clothing twice. Allah had blessed him. The family was immensely rich, wealthy. At that young age, he was known for having the most extravagant of itr and perfume in society. So sometimes you have the top, the bigger people, and this is a young boy, and he was known that this person's fragrance is the best, the most expensive. We don't really understand fragrance in the Arabian, even till today. Lots of people, they like to go and buy oud, and they walk inside Arabian oud and they say, "Can I have this?" "Yeah, here, take this." And if you know what oud you're talking about, you turn around and say, "No, I don't want this one." And he'll look at you and he'll analyze you for a bit. And then he'll pull something out from the back shelf. And he'll say, "No, I don't want that one as well." Then he'll become a bit interested in you. And he'll put out a third bottle. He said, "No." Then he'll go and reach the top of the roof. He'll open that up with a special section there, and he'll pull something out in a special box, because you know what you're talking about. I remember once I was standing there and one sheikh came in. Take everybody else out. Go out. Because the itr that we're going to show him now, it's not for you people. So this was the rank that he possessed. That when society would speak about him, they'd speak about him that this person who has this expensive taste. What resolve and what test that his mother stripped him of everything, every possession, everything that you can imagine. To the point that at the time of his burial, and the Prophet ﷺ is coming to his coffin, it's either you cover the top portion of his body and the bottom portion is uncovered, or you cover the legs and the top is uncovered. That was the resolve. So he gave up so much, extreme amount of testing the resolve of the Sahaba Kiram Ridwanullah Tajma'in. Extreme levels. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested them in ways that we can't imagine. That at the point of life and death, they would still choose Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There's an account of one Khubayb radiallahu ta'ala. He was captured by the disbelievers. This is after the migration, and he was captured, so they considered him, there is a right for us to kill. Either before or after, I can't remember exactly, but he was captured by the disbelievers, and he was considered someone that was halalud dam now. He has abandoned his family's belief system, and so we have the right to kill him. And so they kept him secure for a few days until they decided that the way that they were going to kill him, they were going to crucify him. They were going to kill him in that manner. And so the date was set, the place was set, and everything was ready. And Khubayb radiallahu ta'ala anhu is sort of being brought towards this place where he's going to be now killed in the name of Islam. And Ghaliban Abu Jahl or Abu Lahab, one of the two, they say to Khubayb that, look, wouldn't you rather that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam be in your place? He is not here now. He's living his life. Nothing has happened to them. And now you're in this place. You're not even going to live past today. And this was their resolve. that Allah is referring to, that test. So Khubayb radiallahu ta'ala anhu responded, Wallahi, I swear by Allah, you're asking me about the life of the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I can't fathom the thought that I be sat at home, in the comfort of my home, and a thorn pricks the foot of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I can't tolerate that. I would rather that I lose the comfort of my home and it's my foot there instead than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's foot. And you're talking about the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I would give this life over 100 times for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the resolve of the Muslims were tested for a very lengthy period. From the point of Nubuwwah, immediately it started at different levels for 13 years. 13 years, this type of continuous attack on the possessions, the attack on the families, the attack on their health, the attack on their wealth, continued until finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that the Muslims, the first course of action was they were allowed to leave that place. A full-blown migration. There were two migrations that took place before that, where they went to Abyssinia under the King Najashi, but this was the actual hijrah of Islam. That now Mecca is no longer a place that you can stay because of the situation, and the climax and the peak of that was the peak of why then the decision to allow the migration is the stages, like I mentioned earlier, that first it was ridicule, it was bribery, it was attack on the health, and the eventuality was a decision was made to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. So they had decided that the best way, and there was a chief, an elderly chief who gave this suggestion, and he said that, look, Banu Hashim is very strong. Even though some of Banu Hashim do not accept Muhammad ﷺ as the Prophet of Allah, they won't allow us to kill him. They won't let that happen. There's a lot of tribal sort of machoism, right? So this person gave the suggestion that one member from every tribe, select one, and they together will come and we will kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it won't be one tribe that will be responsible, it will be everybody other than Banu Hashim. And so how many people are they going to retaliate against? So they decided to actually assassinate Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the permission for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the age of 53 to migrate from Makkah al-Mukarramah to Medina al-Munawwarah. Now the account of the actual migration, some of the incidents that take place, they are worthy of their own time, inshallah. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, then we'll continue with that tomorrow. The first bit of this migration was to remember, this migration didn't take place immediately. It took place after a lot of difficulty, a lot of trial, a lot of tribulation, a lot of perseverance, and a lot of resolve from the Muslims of their situation that they were in. So it wasn't just a glorious time from the beginning. There was a lot, and this is very important, that in Islam, sacrifice is always needed. There is always the element of sacrifice in every facet of Islam. Each and every prophet toiled and strived. No prophet came where they were accepted immediately by everybody and great. No, it didn't happen like that. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Nur alayhi salatu wassalam, that the da'wah alone, before he could not accept that these people would believe, was 950 years. 950 years of propagating to a people and continuous rejection. So, in Islam, there is a tremendous mandate of being willing to sacrifice. And the reason why this is important to note in today's climate is because we as humans now, we've become too accustomed to luxury. And for us to sacrifice is very difficult. Our temperaments have changed. Our mindsets have changed. Our psychology has changed. We're very, very prone to ease. That's all we want. And any element of sacrifice is very difficult for us. And we forget that that is key in Islam. In Islam, sacrificing is key. Every prophet went through struggle. The Sahaba went through struggle. We expect to see flourishing of Islam with no struggle. None whatsoever. There has to be that element of sacrifice. And all the sort of factors that surround us in our environment are polar opposites of that. Polar opposites. The Prophet ﷺ, his prayer routine, his schedule of prayer, intense. We struggle for 45 minutes in 2 rakats of Qiyamul Layl. And we get tired and my legs are hurting and oh no, what's going to happen? Allahu Akbar. Night after night, the Prophet ﷺ would stand to such an extent that his feet would swell. They would swell due to excessive standing. This was continuous. Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu would begin his Qiyamul Layl, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, start Surah Al-Baqarah. Before he went into ruku, he would be on Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. He would be on Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. And this is not folk tale or some storytelling. His wife at the time of his assassination announced that by Allah, you are attacking a man who would complete one recital of the Quran in 1 unit of prayer. That's sacrifice. That's willing to give up for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, yes, we're not going to jump to Uthman radiallahu ta'ala who stayed, anytime soon. But there has to be a willingness to give up for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something. We have to be willing to do that. And the hijrah teaches us that. The hijrah didn't come immediately. If Allah wanted, He could have said the first day, Makkah is not good for you, go to Medina al-Munawwarah. It's better for you there. 13 years. 13 years of struggle. Not 1 day, not 2 days, 13 years. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes through this teaching of hijrah the concept of struggle in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant me the understanding. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of you the understanding. وآخر الدعوة الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.